Your 30s is when your career is taking off, where you're gonna get married, start a family, even buy a home. So here are the financial milestones you should reach by the end of your 30s wherever you are in the world. And if you reach them, you'll get ahead and set yourself up for financial success. The first milestone you want to hit in your 30s is to have $0 in debt. The only exception here is, of course, your mortgage. Ideally, you have no credit card debt, no student loans, and in a perfect world, you would have no car payment either. Credit card debt happens when you do not pay your balance in full every month, and then you have to pay interest. Do you know how high the interest rate is for credit cards? It's 24.2% in the US and up to 20% in Japan. That's a lot of interest rate. Let me spell it out for you in detail. If you bought something that's worth, let's say, $1,000 with your credit card and you did not pay the balance in full, it might end up costing you up to $1,242. Is it worth it? No, I don't think so. So stop buying things you cannot afford with your credit card. Or get rid of the credit cards and use debit cards instead. Did I just sound like Dave Ramsey now? Additionally, if you have a car payment, you want to try to pay it off as well. The average expense in the US today for a new car is around $742, and in Japan it's between 20 to 50,000 yen. You could reduce it by switching to a less expensive car that you can buy without a loan, so you pay cash, though I know it's really difficult. Or you can go for a used car costing around $525 a month. That's still a lot of money, but a lot less. And if you have any student loan or consumer loan, it is the same. Try to pay them off. In your 30s, you are in your prime earning years, so you really want to increase your net worth thanks to your increased revenue, maybe through investment that we're going to talk about in less than a minute. And the last thing you want to do is to pay consumer debt. And if you're not sure how to tackle debt, I'm linking to a video here. But the basics is to use the snowball method and keep at it until you are out of the woods. Here is how it works in a simplified manner. You list up all of your debt, except your mortgage, from the smallest amount on the top to the highest amount on the bottom. And then, every month, you pay the minimum payment for all of them and use any extra cash to pay more for the debt that's on the top. And you continue doing months after months until you pay off that first line. Then you go to number 2 on the list, and on and on and on. You get the drill. And at the end, you've paid off all of this. It won't be easy. It's gonna take time, but it's definitely worth it. We're still gonna keep our mortgage into our 30s because it's unlikely that you can pay it off. That's more for the 40s or the 50s, right? Speaking of which, let me know in the comments down below if you would be interested in videos about financial milestones for people in their 40s and 50s. Thank you very much. Without further ado, let's go to milestone number 2. So the second milestone to accomplish in your 30s is to have a well-funded emergency fund. In your 20s, we wanted to create some financial foundation. So your emergency fund was okay with 3 to 6 months of living expenses. In your 30s, you should prioritize it even more than before because, as we mentioned, you'll have more responsibilities in life and it's going to create so much more pressure on you. For example, you are going to have a partner, I hope for you, kid or kids, a house, your parents to take care of, etc., etc. And that's going to require some extra cash, some extra cushion for you in the form of a liquid emergency fund, especially if things go wrong, because that's why an emergency fund is for. What's going to happen if your kid needs an emergency surgery because they just fell off, or perhaps your water heater just broke down, or your roof is leaking, or maybe a family member needs some help. That's why I think it's even more important than before to have a well-funded emergency fund in your 30s. And you should consider going up to 9 to 12 months of living expenses saved up. And when I say living expenses, I'm talking about things like rent or mortgage, food, utilities, clothing, transportation, health, insurance, education, and debt repayment if you still have some beyond your mortgage. And ideally, it's saved in a high-yield savings account so you can earn some interest. Let me give you an example to illustrate a little bit more. If you're in the US and you're making the average income of $61,980 a year, that's according to the Bureau of Statistics, and usually we consider that living expenses represent 50% of your overall income. In that case, that would be $30,992. Then you're gonna have to have saved $7,748 for 3 months, $15,496 for 6 months, $23,244 for 9 months, and of course, $30,992 for 12 months. In Japan, where I'm located, the average income is 4.6 million yen. We take 50% of it, which is 2.3 million yen. So you need to save 575,000 yen for 3 months, 1.1 million for 6 months, 1.7 million for 9 months, and 2.3 million yen for 12 months. It is a lot of money all at once. So of course, don't try to do it all at once. It's impossible. Just put 10% of your gross income on the side every month until you arrive to the amount that you are aiming to reach. Just automate it to make it less painful. For example, you do an automatic money transfer to a dedicated savings account on the day you are paid, so you don't have to see it. And once you have reached the amount you want, it's time to switch to our milestone number 3. Your third milestone should be to save 10 to 50% of your gross income towards retirement or your investment goal once, of course, your minimum emergency fund is covered. If you are making the annual average income in Japan of 4.6 million yen, you should be saving at least 10% every year, or 460,000 yen, or 38,333 yen per month. In the US, the average income is $61,984, so you should be saving at least $6,198 per year, or $516.5 a month. Very precise. How do you do that? You use any retirement account available to you first. In Japan, we have the DC and iDeCo accounts, which are roughly equivalent to the US 401k. It comes directly from your paycheck, contributions are tax deductible, and it builds over time. And if the amount does not reach 10% of your gross income, or you want to save more, up to 15% or 20%, use another retirement account like the NISA in Japan, which is the equivalent of the IRA or Roth IRA if you're in the US. It works the same way, except the contributions are not tax deductible in the front. It's deductible afterwards, and there are a little bit of technicalities and some exceptions around, but basically it works the same way. Why should you do it, you might ask? Let me give you an example and the math around it. Let's say you put 10% of your average salary into a retirement account from the age of 30 and receive the average stock market returns of 8%. You will have a nice $1.1 million by the age of 65, 35 years later. Same if you have Japanese yen. You save 10% of your average salary from 30 years old up to 65 years old, then you will end up with a cool 81 million yen. Not too bad, right? And remember, 10% is the minimum. So if you aim for 15% or 20%, it's going to be a lot more money. And if you start earlier, which is always very important, thanks to the law of compounding interest, you may end up with so much more money. So no reason to wait any further. The fourth financial goal to accomplish in your 30s is going to have at least 3 times your annual salary saved for retirement by the time you reach 40. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the annual average income of somebody in the United States by the time they reach the age of 40 is $62,000. That means by the age 40, so at the end of your 30s, you should have at least 3 times that saved into your retirement account or a general saving account in order to get you to your retirement goal. So we're talking about an amount of around $186,000. In Japan, with the average salary being around 8 million yen at 40, that means by the time you reach that age, you should have at least 3 times 8 million yen, which is 24 million yen. Now, if you haven't reached that point yet, it's really important not to get discouraged yet. You're still in your 30s, you have plenty of time, at least another 2 or 3 decades before you go for retirement. So that's a lot of time for you to start doing it and compound your wealth and your retirement. And if you're watching this channel, I'd love to hear from you down below in the comments. If you are on pace with that target, if you are already ahead of that goal, or perhaps you are a little bit behind of that goal. And if you're younger than the age of 30, then 3 times your annual salary by the time you reach the age of 40 is a very, very good goal to have. Milestone number 5. Since you're going to be making more money, you probably have more obligation as well. And some temptation to indulge in a few more things because you can afford it, right? This is actually the best way to sabotage your future. Let me explain. I'm not saying to start living on instant noodles and don't enjoy the occasional going out, or buying yourself a nice little holiday. Not at all. You don't have to start counting every nickel and dime. Rather, I want to warn you against getting into the habit of spending too much money and getting used to living with more than you actually need. It's actually called lifestyle inflation. One of the lessons of the books The Millionaire Next Door is the fact that most people who are great accumulators of wealth are actually not spending too much of their income. They often try to keep their lifestyle as cheap as possible, and therefore that difference between how much money they make and how much money they spend allows them to accumulate wealth like no other and actually invest that wealth, right? To compound it and make it even bigger. On the flip side, many people that look really well off are actually in deep debt. They have designer clothes, they have a big car, a bigger house, and they go on holiday, right? To use the words from a very famous person, they look good and go nowhere. So the best advice is to spend reasonably, to have a budget and live below your means. And if you do that, you'll be completely fine. The sixth goal to achieve in your 30s is start thinking about the future. And by that, I mean have your papers in order for your kid or kids or your partner in case something happens to you. I know. You are in your 30s and don't want to hear that. You have your life in front of you. But you will sleep better at night knowing that you have done the right thing to take care for those you love in case something were to happen to you. So, if you have kids, you probably should start to develop an estate plan. That's a big word, but it's not so complicated. Listen to me. The major components of an estate plan are developing a living will, even if it's a very basic one, and also the healthcare power of attorney. These are just documents that state your preferences in case something were to happen to you. These aren't as hard to set up as you might think. Even having a basic living will is quite easy to do. You just go online, you find a template, you change it for your own circumstances, and voila, you have your basic plan. And you might still need to go to a notary to get it notarized and make it legal. In Japan, it's actually not a notary, it's called a public scrivener or a shiro shioshi. Of course, if you have a complicated situation, you might still actually want to go to a legal professional, but just having the very basic paperwork is going to go a long way. Another benefit of an estate plan is that you can designate a legal guardian for your minor children. That way, you're ensuring that your children are always taken care of and someone that you trust, which is also very important. And if you have another person depending on you that's not a child, it works exactly the same way. Oh, and while you're at it, why don't you start putting money on the side for your kid or kids' education, thinking about the future? In the US, there's a great plan called the 529 plan that's really tax advantageous and you can start early. There's a lot of variation depending on the state, but that's something you should research. And in Japan, there are like insurances plan that are called usually Kyoiku Shikin plan. The earlier you start, the lower the premium and the better the chance of being able to cover the cost of tuition when your kid or kids decide to go studying wherever they're going. The 7th milestone is very personal, so take it with a grain of salt. As you start having more money and planning for your future and your kids, it's a good idea to start thinking about those who are less fortunate than you. Said otherwise, charity. According to the World Giving Index, the top 3 countries that contribute the most to charity are Indonesia, Kenya, and Singapore. And the USA is number 6, my home country of France is number 100, and Japan, where I'm currently located, is number 141 out of 142. So it has nothing to do with where you live, how wealthy you are, or where you're coming from, but what you decide to do. Therefore, I encourage you to spend at least 1% and maybe up to 10% of your income towards charity, depending on your situation and your own beliefs. It can be through money donation on a regular basis to a charity or charities that you feel close to. It can also be volunteering your time to directly help distributing food, clothing, building a school, teaching, whatever you feel you can contribute. It does not seem like much or be related to everything we talked about until now in this video or on that channel for the longest time. But if you are able to be comfortable enough to help those in need, then you are really on the way to being wealthy. And here you are, the 7 money milestones to achieve in your 30s. Do not hesitate to let me know in the comments down below how many you have achieved or whether you have others worth considering. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And if you're interested in learning more about personal finance and Japan, please check these videos as well. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, goodbye.